Then Logan exhaled sharply, like a man ripping off a bandage. He stepped out, slammed his door, and popped the trunk. Cold air rushed in when he opened Hannah's door. "Get out," he said. She laughed, a tiny, panicked sound. "Quit joking. Jacob's barely dressed for this cold." Logan leaned in close, the smell of some expensive cologne mixing bitterly with the stench of garbage. "I'm not joking," he murmured. "Take the baby and the bag." Her heart started to pound. "Logan, you're scaring me." He walked around, unbuckled the car seat with practiced movements, and set Jacob, still crying, on the cracked asphalt. The baby's sobs bounced off the metal walls of the dumpster, an echo that clawed at Hannah's nerves. "You said you trusted me," Logan said, yanking her worn duffel from the trunk and dropping it beside the car seat. "Well, trust this. We're done. I'm not going back to that Roachbox apartment or this sad little life." Hannah stumbled out of the car, one hand on Jacob's seat, the other on her aching belly. "What are you talking about? Where are we supposed to go?" Logan glanced at his watch, the cheap metal band replaced by a sleek new one. His tuxedo jacket hung neatly in a garment bag in the back seat, next to a pale blue box tied with a white ribbon. 15 minutes from now, I'll be at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan," he said slowly, as if explaining math to a child. "I'm marrying Charlotte, and her family doesn't need to know you exist. Your dad will take you in. You'll survive. I'm done being poor." A horn blared somewhere out on the main road, snapping Hannah out of her daze. "Logan, please, Jacob is your son. I'm carrying your baby." For one heartbeat, his eyes flickered, guilt fighting with greed. Greed won. He slid back behind the wheel and slammed the door, locking it with a decisive click. The engine roared to life, headlights washing over Hannah, Jacob, and the pathetic little pile of their belongings. He threw the car into gear and sped away, never noticing the security camera blinking red above the dumpster, quietly recording everything tonight. Hannah stood frozen in the cold night long after Logan's car disappeared, her breath coming out in uneven clouds as Jacob wailed in the car seat beside her. Her hands shook violently as she gathered the crying baby, pressing his warm body to her chest, trying to shield him from the bitter wind cutting through her thin jacket. The stench of the dumpster clung to the air, mixing with gasoline fumes that still lingered from Logan's speeding car. She swallowed hard, her throat raw from holding back tears. She couldn't fall apart. Not with Jacob here, not with another life inside her. She bent down, lifted the car seat with trembling arms, and grabbed the duffel bag Logan had tossed like trash. The strap broke halfway up, spilling diapers, formula packets, and her work shoes onto the filthy pavement. She crouched, gathering everything with numb fingers, dusting off bits of gravel as Jacob's cries turned into small, hiccuping sobs. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered, though she didn't believe it. "Mama's here." When she managed to drag everything to the front of the strip mall, she realized the entire building was closed. The fluorescent "Open 24 hours" sign flickered uselessly over a locked convenience store door. Her phone was gone, left under the seat of Logan's car, and she had no way to call her father. The bus stop half a block away was empty, the next bus not due for at least 40 minutes. She didn't have enough money in her pockets to even ride it. Her breath hitched. She felt the cold sinking into her bones, into the marrow of her fear. She hugged Jacob closer, rocking him slowly. "I'm so sorry," she murmured, voice breaking. A group of teenagers rode past on bikes, laughing loudly. They didn't even glance at her. A delivery truck rumbled by, spraying dirty slush across the curb, splattering Hannah's jeans. She didn't move. She just stared at the ground, jaw trembling uncontrollably. Minutes passed, she didn't know how many. Enough for her feet to go numb, enough for her fingers to stop stinging, enough for her face to stop feeling like her own. Then headlights swept across her from behind. She stiffened, clutching Jacob to her chest. For one wild second, she thought Logan had come back, maybe to apologize, maybe because he felt one sliver of guilt. Hope flickered, weak and desperate. But the vehicle that pulled up was not Logan's sleek sedan. It was an older SUV, the kind used by security teams at malls or grocery chains. The driver's door opened slowly. A tall man in a dark jacket stepped out, adjusting a badge clipped to his shirt. He looked mid-40s, broad-shouldered, with lines around his eyes that suggested long nights and hard years. Hannah recognized the logo on his jacket. It belonged to the security company that patrolled the area. "Ma'am," he called softly, raising one hand in a gesture of caution. You okay out here? It's freezing tonight. Hannah pressed back against the wall, instinctively wary. I'm fine, she lied, though her lips were blue. The man stepped closer, his voice gentle. You're holding a baby in 30-degree weather. You're not fine. Jacob whimpered, pushing his tiny fists against her chest. The man paused. My name's Mateo, he said. I'm on the night shift. He stopped, eyes shifting upward, to the mounted security camera above the dumpster, then back to her. Something in his expression changed to recognition, a calculation. Ma'am, were you dropped off here against your will? Her throat closed. She couldn't answer. The truth was too big to say. Mateo didn't push. Come sit in the SUV, he said quietly. It's warm. You can explain when you're ready. Hannah hesitated, fear and exhaustion pulling her in opposite directions. Please, he added gently. Your baby needs heat. She stepped toward the SUV, each footstep heavy, barely steady. As Mateo opened the back door and the warm air rushed out, Hannah heard a tiny beep overhead. The security camera had turned its motion sensor, locking directly onto her. And Mateo's face went pale, as if he suddenly realized the footage it recorded would change everything. The heat inside the SUV felt like stepping into another world. Hannah's fingers burned as sensation returned, sharp pins and needles rushing across her skin. Jacob quieted almost instantly, soothed by the warm air blowing from the vents. Mateo shut the door gently behind them, walking around to the driver's seat without making her feel cornered. When he sat down, he didn't start the engine again. He kept his hands on the wheel, giving her space. Take your time, he said softly. Hannah stared at her fogged window, unable to look at him. Shame crawled up her neck. She felt filthy, weak, like everyone who passed would see her exactly how Logan saw her disposable. Jacob gave a soft, tired whine. She brushed his cheek, whispering, Mama's here. Mateo cleared his throat. I saw enough on the camera to know someone left you there. Her heart lurched. Camera? He nodded toward the back of the strip mall. Their motion triggered. You were standing right beneath one. Panic flared in her chest. Can people see it? Only me and my supervisor, he said. Footage goes directly to our system. I was reviewing it when I saw him. She squeezed Jacob's hand. Please don't show anyone. Mateo's brows furrowed. Ma'am, that man threw you out of his car with a baby. That's not a private matter. That's abandonment. The word hit her like a blow. Abandonment. She swallowed hard. He's my husband, she whispered. We're just having a rough time. Mateo turned slightly, studying her face. Ma'am, rough times look like arguments. Maybe someone walking away. Not dumping a pregnant woman and a child behind a dumpster. Tears blurred her vision. She hugged the car seat, pressing Jacob close. I don't have anywhere to go. You said you have family? My dad, she murmured, but he's sick, heart problems. I don't want to worry him. Does he know you're pregnant again? She shook her head. He'd look at me like I'm breaking my life twice. Mateo didn't speak for a moment. He tapped his fingers on the wheel thoughtfully. I'm calling someone, he said at last. No police, Hannah whispered quickly, panic rising. Mateo raised a hand. Not police. My supervisor. She's a woman. Good one. She'll know what to do about the footage. Hannah closed her eyes, overwhelmed. She could barely hear the muffled ringtone through the SUV speakers. After a moment, a calm female voice answered. Security dispatch, Denise speaking. It's Mateo, he said. We've got an abandonment case on camera. The woman and infant are with me. Hannah's breath caught. Send me the file, Denise replied, and take her somewhere safe. You know the protocol. Copy. He hung up. When he met Hannah's eyes again, his voice softened. There's a shelter 10 minutes from here. Safe, clean, mostly for women with kids. They'll give you a bed, food, medical help. You won't be alone. Hannah shook her head weakly. I can't stay in a shelter. Logan will think I ran away to make him look bad. Mateo blinked, stunned. Ma'am, he left you in the trash. The truth of it made her chest ache. She rubbed her stomach, feeling the faint flutter she'd felt earlier that morning. The tiny reminder that another life depended on her. Can I think for a minute? Of course. Silence settled over the SUV, broken only by Jacob's soft breathing. Outside, the flickering security lamp buzzed, casting long shadows across the snow-dusted pavement. Then Mateo leaned forward, staring ahead through the windshield. "That's strange," he murmured. "What?" he pointed. A black sedan had just pulled into the lot, slowing near the dumpsters. Not Logan's car, something cleaner, newer, tinted windows. It inched forward like it was searching for someone. Hannah's blood ran cold. "Is that him?" Mateo asked. "No," she whispered. "Logan drives an older silver one." The sedan crept closer, circling the back of the mall. Something about the way it moved made every nerve in her body tense. The back window lowered a few inches. A camera lens glinted under the light. Someone was recording the exact spot where Logan abandoned her, someone who clearly knew more than she did. The black sedan rolled to a slow stop near the dumpsters, its engine humming low, too smooth to belong to anyone from this part of town. Hannah's pulse hammered in her throat. Mateo's body shifted instinctively, protective, his hand moving away from the wheel and toward the small flashlight holstered on his belt, more a symbolic tool than a weapon, but his posture changed completely. Military, controlled. "Don't move," he murmured. Hannah tightened her grip on Jacob's car seat. The tinted window lowered another inch. A faint click sounded someone adjusting focus on a camera inside. "Why would anyone be recording this place?" Hannah whispered. Mateo didn't answer. He was watching the sedan's movements, every muscle coiled. "Stay low," he said quietly, reaching across to press the lock button on the SUV doors. The click of the locks seemed too loud in the tense silence. The sedan inched forward again, headlights sweeping the patch of asphalt where Logan had abandoned them. Hannah's breath caught. "They're filming the same spot," she whispered. "Why?" Mateo's jaw tensed. "One reason," he said. "Somebody already knew what was going to happen here." A fresh wave of cold dread crawled across her skin. "Are you saying Logan planned this with someone?" "Either that," Mateo said, "or someone is tracking him. People with money do that." Hannah shivered. Charlotte's face flashed in her mind, the flawless, wealthy woman whose photos she'd once seen on Logan's phone. The kind of woman who lived in a world where even their mistakes were managed by teams. Mateo leaned slightly forward. "Hold on," he said. The SUV interior fell silent again. The sedan door opened. A man stepped out tall, dressed in a long black coat, scarf tucked neatly at the collar. Not a thug, not a drunk, not lost. He looked like someone who belonged in Manhattan, not behind a strip mall. He checked his watch, scanned the area, then pulled out his phone. Hannah felt her stomach clench. "Do you know him?" Mateo asked. "No." The man raised his phone toward the dumpsters, filming the ground, the tire tracks, the scattered debris, documenting everything. And then, he spoke quiet but clear enough through the cold air. "Logan Pierce," he said into the phone, "did exactly what you said he would. The footage lines up." Hannah's blood froze. "He said Logan's name," she whispered. Mateo stared at her, shocked. "Who is that guy?" She shook her head. "I don't know. I don't know anyone like that." The man continued speaking into his phone. "Yes, sir. We'll send this to Miss Charlotte as soon as I'm done recording. She'll decide how to proceed." Hannah almost dropped Jacob's car seat. "Charlotte?" Her voice cracked. Mateo's eyes widened. "The heiress?" "She knew," Hannah whispered, horrified. "She knew Logan would leave us here." The man walked closer to the dumpster, angling his phone to capture the security camera above. Then he looked around the lot again, calm, methodical, like he was collecting evidence for a case. "Charlotte wanted proof he wasn't lying about the wife," the man said into his phone. "Now she has it." Hannah's lungs felt tight, her breath shallow. "She knew about me," she whispered. "She knew he was married. She knew he had a baby. And she still—" Her voice broke. Mateo shook his head slowly. "This isn't just a cheating situation," he said. "This is strategic. Someone with her money doesn't do anything impulsive." The man finished recording, glanced around one last time, then returned to the sedan. As he opened the door, Hannah saw something glint in his hand, a USB drive. He slipped it into his coat pocket. "They're saving everything," she whispered. "Every second of this." Mateo nodded grimly. "And if they're gathering evidence, that means this isn't the end for you, or for him." The sedan pulled away, the cold wind returning to fill the silence it left behind. Hannah stared at the empty space where it had been, her heart pounding with a new, unsettling fear. because now she understood. Logan hadn't just betrayed her, he had dragged her into a world far more dangerous than she ever imagined. Mateo started the SUV, the soft rumble grounding Hannah just enough to breathe again. Her hands trembled as she tucked a blanket tighter around Jacob, who was drifting back to sleep, unaware of the storm surrounding him. The heater hummed, but the cold in her chest wouldn't leave. Why would Charlotte want evidence of this? She whispered. Mateo pulled out of the lot slowly, scanning the mirrors. Rich families document everything. They protect their image first, people second. Hannah looked down at her hands. They were scraped from when Logan shoved the duffel to the ground. She hadn't even noticed until now. But why record me? Why not confront him? Maybe she plans to. Mateo turned onto the road, headlights cutting through the thin veil of drifting snow. Or maybe someone else in her family doesn't like what he's doing. Wealthy circles aren't as united as they look. Hannah's breath shuddered. "This is my life," she whispered. "Not a business transaction." Mateo didn't answer. He didn't have to. She could see in his tight jaw that he agreed. The SUV rolled to a stop at a red light. The glow washed across Jacob's sleeping face, softening his tiny features. Hannah brushed a curl off his forehead. "He almost froze tonight," she murmured. The tremor in her voice broke something inside her. "My baby almost froze because his father wanted to look rich." "He's lucky you stayed strong," Mateo said quietly. "Some people freeze up in situations like that. You didn't." She blinked hard, tears threatening. "I didn't feel strong." "Strength isn't loud," Mateo replied. "Sometimes it's just staying on your feet." The light turned green, but Mateo didn't move. His attention had snapped to something in the rearview mirror. Hannah turned slowly. A pair of headlights approached slow, deliberate, like the black sedan earlier. But this one was different. Older. Familiar. Her breath caught. "That's Logan's car," she whispered. Mateo's shoulders hardened. "Hold on." The sedan accelerated, closing the distance. Hannah's pulse spiked. Why is he coming back? "Maybe he realized the camera above the dumpster recorded him," Mateo said. "Or maybe he didn't finish." Logan's sedan swerved into the lane behind them. For a moment, they drove in silence, two cars moving through the empty night. Then Logan flashed his high beams once, twice. A signal. "He wants us to pull over," Hannah whispered, gripping Jacob's seat. Mateo shook his head. "Not happening." Logan flashed the lights again, harder this time. His car edged closer, almost touching the bumper. Mateo kept steady. "He's pushing you," Hannah said, voice trembling. "Let him push." Logan honked long, angry, impatient. Then he swerved to the right lane, speeding up until he was parallel with the SUV. Hannah shrank back instinctively. Logan rolled his window down. His face was red, wild, desperate. He shouted something, but the wind swallowed his words. Mateo cracked his window just enough to hear. Logan's voice cut through the freezing air. "Pull over, now." Mateo didn't. Logan's expression twisted with rage. He pointed at Hannah, eyes burning. "You ruined everything," she recoiled. "Me?" The sedan jolted closer, swerving toward them. Mateo steadied the wheel. "Back off," he barked. Logan yelled again. "Give me the card." Hannah blinked. "What card?" Logan cursed violently, slamming his fist on the steering wheel. "Don't play stupid. Charlotte's guy must have dropped it. He wouldn't leave without hiding something." Hannah's blood ran cold. "The man from the dumpster." Mateo frowned. "He dropped something?" "I didn't see anything," she cried. Jacob was crying. I didn't." Logan swerved again, clipping the SUV's rear bumper. The SUV lurched. Jacob woke, wailing. "Stop!" Hannah screamed. Mateo swore, gripping the wheel. "He's going to run us off the road." "Why does he need a card?" she cried. "What's on it?" Logan leaned out his window, screaming through the cold. "Proof. Enough to destroy me." His panic wasn't the panic of a cheating husband. It was the panic of someone whose entire scheme was crumbling. Mateo gunned the engine, pulling away. The sedan tried to follow until suddenly, blue lights exploded behind them. A police cruiser streaked forward, sirens slicing the night. Logan panicked and swerved hard straight into a snowbank. The cruiser skidded in beside him. Mateo exhaled, tension draining from his shoulders. "Looks like someone else was watching tonight, too," he muttered. Hannah stared, heart pounding. as officers approached Logan's smashed sedan. And for the first time, she realized Logan's downfall wasn't just beginning, it was unfolding faster than she could ever predict. The cruiser's flashing lights faded into the snowy distance as Mateo steered the SUV down a quieter street, away from Logan's wrecked sedan. Hannah held Jacob tightly, listening to the wail of sirens echoing behind them. The baby trembled in her arms, tiny fingers clutching her coat. "Is he going to jail?" she whispered. Mateo shook his head. "Not tonight. They'll check for DUI, maybe reckless driving, but unless they know the whole story, he'll spin something and get released." Hannah stared at the passing buildings. Dark laundromats, closed diners, an empty playground where the swings creaked in the wind. Everything felt surreal. "I can't face him again," she whispered. "Not after tonight." "You won't," Mateo said firmly. "Not if I can help it." They drove in silence for several minutes. Snowflakes drifted beneath the streetlights, melting against the windshield. Jacob fussed softly, and Hannah rocked him, trying to steady her own breathing. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Mateo replied. "A friend of mine runs night security at a community center. They let families stay when shelters are full." Hannah's throat tightened. "I don't want handouts." "This isn't a handout," he said gently. "It's temporary safety. You need warmth, food, rest, and someone needs to check your blood pressure. Stress this heavy is dangerous for you and the baby." His voice held quiet urgency. Hannah looked down at her stomach. She hadn't let herself think about the baby since the dumpster lot. Fear rushed back in a cold wave. What if the shock hurt the baby? What if she'd been standing in that freezing air too long? Her chest tightened. Mateo noticed. "Hang in there," he said. "We're close." The SUV turned onto a side street lined with brick apartment buildings. Lights glowed faintly behind curtains. A man smoked on a stoop, watching the snow. Everything looked normal, painfully normal, compared to what she'd just survived. They pulled into a small parking lot beside a community center with a faded sign reading Hudson Neighborhood Outreach. The building looked humble, but golden light glowed through the windows. It felt like a different world from the cold alley. Mateo shut off the engine. "Wait here," he said, stepping out. Hannah watched him jog to the entrance and ring a buzzer. A moment later, a woman in a thick cardigan let him in. They spoke briefly, then both looked toward the SUV. Hannah's stomach tightened. A minute later, Mateo returned, opening her door gently. "Her name is Rosie," he said. "She's expecting you. Ready?" Hannah felt suddenly small, weak, exposed. But Jacob whimpered, and that settled the question. She stepped out with the car seat, legs shaky from cold and fear. Inside, the center was warm and quiet. A small Christmas tree blinked in the corner, even though the holidays had passed. Rosie, a woman in her early 50s with soft eyes, approached. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "let's get you both warm." She touched the back of Hannah's hand. "You're freezing. Come with me." Hannah swallowed hard. "Thank you." Rosie guided her into a small office with a couch and space heater. She handed Hannah a warm blanket and a cup of water. Jacob settled quickly, soothed by the heat. Rosie checked Hannah's pulse, then her blood pressure. "Your numbers are okay," she said softly, "but you're exhausted. Shock does that." Hannah nodded, tears burning her eyes. "My husband, he left us, behind a dumpster." Rosie's face tightened, anger flashing. "Then he doesn't get to call himself your husband anymore." Mateo stood quietly in the doorway, arms crossed, jaw clenched. "There's something else," he said. "Someone filmed it. Someone connected to the woman he's marrying tomorrow." Rosie turned sharply. "Tomorrow? The Plaza Hotel," Mateo said. "Big family. Big money." Rosie shook her head. "Those people protect their own image at all costs." Hannah wrapped the blanket tighter, voice trembling. "Why would they need proof of what he did?" Mateo's expression darkened. "Because someone in her family wants him exposed, and I think they're about to use you to do it." Hannah's breath caught. "Use me?" Mateo stepped closer, voice firm but gentle. "No one is getting to you. Not Logan, not them." He glanced between her and Jacob. "You're not alone anymore." Hannah felt something crack inside, relief mixed with fear. And then Rosie's phone rang, screen lighting up with an unknown Manhattan number, as if the wealthy world she'd just escaped had already tracked her down. Rosie stared at the glowing screen, her brows knitting. "I don't know this number," she murmured, but something in her tone made Hannah's stomach twist. Mateo stepped forward immediately. "Don't answer yet." The phone kept vibrating, the Manhattan area code bright against the dim office. Hannah felt her throat tighten. "What if it's Logan?" Mateo shook his head. "Logan doesn't have this number. He'd be panicking, not calling politely." The phone stopped ringing. For a moment, there was silence. Then another call. Same number, persistent. Rosie looked at Hannah, giving her control. "Do you want me to pick it up?" Hannah's heart pounded so hard she felt it in her ears. The warmth of the office did nothing to stop her trembling. She looked down at Jacob, asleep in his car seat, cheeks flushed peacefully. Her voice barely came out. "Answer it," on speaker. Rosie nodded gently and pressed the button. "Hudson Outreach, this is Rosie." A smooth male voice flowed through the speaker, calm, elegant, and practiced. "Good evening. My name is Andrew Kensington. I'm trying to reach a woman named Hannah Whitmore. I was told she might be with you." The air seemed to freeze. Hannah clutched the blanket tighter. Kensington, Charlotte's family. Mateo's posture changed instantly, straight, guarded, military. Rosie glanced at him, then spoke carefully. "May I ask why you're trying to contact her?" Andrew exhaled softly, as if this call weighed on him. "Because this situation has escalated beyond what my sister anticipated. We need to speak with Miss Whitmore immediately." "Sister? Charlotte?" Hannah's breathing grew unsteady. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice shaking. Rosie moved the phone closer. Andrew's tone softened. "Miss Whitmore, I'm glad you're safe." "Safe." He said it as if he'd been genuinely worried. Hannah swallowed. "Why are you calling me?" A pause. Then, "Because Logan Pierce lied to all of us. And someone in my family made a mistake in trusting him." Mateo muttered under his breath. "Someone in your family helped him." Andrew didn't deny it. "Yes," he said, "and that mistake has consequences." Rosie crossed her arms. "Are you calling to apologize or to intimidate her?" Andrew sighed. "Neither. I'm calling to request a meeting tomorrow morning, at our offices on Park Avenue." Hannah's heart lurched. "Why would I meet you?" "Because Logan is trying to manipulate the narrative," Andrew said. "He's trying to reach my sister. He's lying about you again. We have substantial evidence proving what he did tonight, but we need your statement." Hannah blinked rapidly, confusion overwhelming her. "Statement for what?" Another pause. Then Andrew said something she never expected. "My father plans to annul the wedding, permanently. He wants full documentation of Logan's behavior. Not for legal trouble," his voice hardened. "For protection." Hannah didn't understand. Protection from what? Mateo stepped closer, sensing something deeper. Andrew continued quietly. "My father trusted the wrong man years ago. It cost him more than money. He's determined that no one in this family marries a fraud again." Rosie's eyes widened slightly, as if she recognized the weight behind those words. Hannah shook her head slowly. "I don't want to be involved in your world. I don't want anything from your family. I just want to be safe." "And you will be," Andrew said firmly. "We'll send a car, discreetly. We'll provide security if needed." Mateo stepped in, voice sharp. "She's not going with any of your people. If you want a meeting, you do it here, on public ground." Andrew paused. "May I ask who I'm speaking to?" Mateo didn't hesitate. "Someone who won't let her get used again." Andrew exhaled. "Understood. Then let's do this the right way. Tomorrow morning, a neutral location, anywhere she chooses." Hannah's throat tightened. Jacob stirred, his small fingers curling in his sleep. She felt her resolve sharpen. "Why do you really want me there?" Andrew's answer came quietly. "Because my father already knows the truth, and when he confronts Logan tomorrow, he wants the real wife present." Hannah froze. "Present?" "Yes, because Logan will lie unless he's forced to face what he did, and my father doesn't tolerate liars." A chill slid down Hannah's spine. She could almost see it, the Plaza Hotel, the wealthy guests, Logan trying to charm everyone, and then being exposed publicly. Andrew added softly, "You deserve justice, Miss Whitmore. And tomorrow, you will have it." The call ended. Silence filled the room. Hannah stared at Mateo, shaken. "What do I do?" Mateo's voice was steady. "You show up." Rosie nodded. "And you let these people destroy the man who tried to destroy you." Hannah pressed a trembling hand to her belly. What if this makes things worse? Mateo held her gaze. Then I'll be right there beside you. And Hannah felt, for the first time all night, that she wasn't stepping into this storm alone, but straight into the moment that would change everything. Morning arrived gray and sharp, the kind of winter dawn where sunlight felt too weak to warm anything. Hannah barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Logan's headlights, the dumpster, the man filming, the black sedan returning again and again in her mind, like a nightmare she was trapped inside. Jacob slept curled against her chest on the community center cot, unaware of the storm forming around them. When she sat up, her muscles screamed with exhaustion, but something inside her felt strangely firm, like a small, fragile piece of strength had finally rooted itself overnight. Rosie knocked lightly before entering. "Sweetheart, I made you toast and tea," she said. "Eat a little, even if you don't feel like it. Your baby needs it." Hannah nodded, managing a grateful smile. Mateo stepped in behind Rosie, dressed in a clean black jacket, boots, and a quiet determination that instantly calmed her. "Kensington's assistant texted," he said. "They'll meet wherever you choose, so let's pick a spot that's safe." Hannah thought for a moment. "The River Cafe," she whispered. Mateo raised a brow. "Brooklyn, it's public, it's bright, and—" she swallowed. Logan used to say it was the kind of place he'd take someone worth impressing. "I guess I want the irony." Mateo gave a faint, approving smirk. "Then that's where we'll go." By late morning, they stood outside the cafe, the East River rippling behind them, Manhattan's skyline rising in frosted blues and silvers. Hannah felt small in her borrowed coat, her breath visible in the cold, but she also felt steadier than she expected. Jacob rested in his car seat, wrapped in a thick blanket Rosie insisted she take. They waited only minutes before a dark town car pulled up. Mateo stepped slightly in front of Hannah, protective without smothering. A tall man in a charcoal coat stepped out, early 40s, sharp eyes, composed. Not rich boy arrogant, more like someone used to cleaning up messes others made. "Miss Whitmore?" he asked gently. "Yes," Hannah whispered. "I'm Andrew," he said. He glanced at Jacob, his expression softening. "Thank you for meeting us." He motioned toward the cafe. Mateo walked in first, scanning the area instinctively. Andrew led Hannah to a corner table overlooking the river. A waitress brought warm coffee and hot chocolate, and while Hannah wrapped her hands around the cup, Andrew placed a folder on the table. Inside were photos, screenshots, dates, times. Logan picking up Charlotte from her penthouse. Logan wearing a suit that clearly wasn't purchased with his salary. Logan meeting someone behind a bank building, handing over documents. Logan with a gambling slip. But worst of all was one still frame. Logan's hand shoving Hannah's arm while the car seat dangled dangerously. Hannah covered her mouth, trembling. "We're not here to hurt you," Andrew said softly. "We're here because someone in my family made the mistake of believing Logan's lies. We need to correct that mistake publicly." Mateo leaned forward. "What's the plan?" Andrew hesitated just a moment, then said, "My father wants to confront Logan at the pre-ceremony brunch this afternoon. The entire Kensington board will be there. Major partners, investors, Charlotte included." Hannah's heart stopped. "Why me?" "Because Logan will deny everything unless he sees you," Andrew said. "And because my father believes public humiliation is the only language a man like Logan understands." Hannah gripped the edge of the table. "I'm scared," Andrew nodded. "Courage doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you show up anyway." Jacob began to fuss, and Hannah rocked him gently, wiping a tear from her cheek. "What happens after?" Andrew exhaled. "That depends on you, but I'll make something clear. Logan won't be able to touch you. My family will ensure that. Financially, legally, socially." Mateo's jaw tightened. "And what about her dignity?" Andrew met his eyes. "That's exactly what we're restoring." Hannah looked between them, two men from completely different worlds, both protecting her in ways Logan never had. Something inside her shifted. She wasn't trash, she wasn't weak, she wasn't alone. She took a deep breath, steadying her voice. "Okay," she said. "Let's end this." Andrew nodded slowly, respect in his eyes. "Then prepare yourself, Miss Whitmore. This afternoon, Logan Pierce's perfect world ends." And as they rose from the table, Hannah felt for the first time the spark of a woman who was no longer running, but ready to face the fire. The pre-ceremony brunch took place at the Kensington family's private suite inside the Plaza Hotel. High ceilings, gold accents, sunlight pouring through tall windows that overlooked Central Park. It was the kind of place Logan used to talk about as if it were his destiny. Now, Hannah was walking straight into that world with Jacob in her arms and Mateo at her side. Her heart pounded with every step across the marble floor. The luxury around her felt unreal. Fresh orchids, polished silver trays, waiters in white jackets. She kept her eyes on Jacob's tiny hand, gripping her coat, grounding herself. Andrew met them at the elevator. "He's inside already," he said quietly. "Charlotte, too." And her father. His jaw tightened. "You won't need to say a word unless you want to." Mateo stepped slightly closer to her. "If anyone touches her, I step in." Andrew nodded without offense. Understood. They walked toward double doors, guarded by private security. When the doors opened, a hush fell instantly. Conversations stopped. Dozens of wealthy guests turned to stare first at Hannah's worn coat, then at Jacob's car seat, then at the quiet determination in her eyes. Logan stood near the center of the room, adjusting his tie nervously while speaking to Charlotte. He froze mid-sentence when he saw Hannah. His face drained completely of color. His champagne flute slipped from his fingers and shattered on the carpet. "Hannah?" he choked out. "What? How?" Charlotte turned sharply, her perfect smile faltering as she looked between them. "Logan, who is this?" Logan stumbled forward. "She's nobody. She's just—" Andrew cut in calmly. "She's your wife." Gasps rippled through the room. Charlotte's eyes widened. "Your what?" Logan's voice pitched upward. No, that's not. She's lying. She's obsessed with me. Before he could finish, Andrew lifted a remote. A large screen behind the buffet flickered on. Hannah felt her stomach twist. The security footage played Logan, dragging the duffel bag, shoving the car seat, the cold glare in his eyes as he ordered her out. The audio wasn't perfect, but the image was clear enough to make the entire room recoil. Charlotte covered her mouth in horror. Logan lunged forward. "Turn that off! You can't, this is illegal." Andrew remained perfectly composed. Everything shown here was recorded by a camera on private property with full legal permission. Logan spun toward Charlotte, desperate. "Baby, listen, she's crazy, okay? She tricked me, Enough," Charlotte whispered, her voice shaking. "You told me you were divorced. You told me she faked the pregnancy." Logan's eyes darted around wildly. "I can fix this. I can explain." Her father, William Kensington, stepped forward, tall, stern, powerful. "I trusted you," he said quietly. "I was prepared to bring you into my family's business, into our future. And you repay that trust by abandoning your pregnant wife and child behind a dumpster?" Logan stammered. "Sir, please, this isn't—" "Get on your knees," William said. The room went dead silent. Hannah's breath caught. Even she hadn't expected this. Logan blinked rapidly. "What?" William's voice sharpened, cutting the air. "You lied to my daughter, to my family, to my investors. You dragged us into your filth. You want forgiveness? You want a chance to speak? Then get on your knees." Charlotte stepped back, disgust replacing her shock. Logan looked around, but there was no escape. Security blocked the doors, and every guest watched with cold judgment. His legs buckled. He dropped to his knees on the polished floor, hands shaking, breath trembling. "Hannah," he gasped, his voice cracking. "Please, say something. Tell them it wasn't tell them." Hannah felt Mateo's steady presence behind her. She lifted her chin. All the fear, all the humiliation, all the pain finally, it left her body. She met Logan's tearful eyes. "I don't owe you anything," she said softly. Logan broke, falling forward onto his hands as the room murmured in disgust. William turned to Hannah then, his voice gentler. "You won't face him again. My family will ensure your protection. You and your children deserve better than this." Hannah exhaled shakily, tears burning her eyes, not of fear, but release. And as Logan knelt, defeated and exposed before the world he tried to crawl into, Hannah finally felt the weight of survival shift into the power of justice. The moment William Kensington ordered security to escort Logan out of the suite, the atmosphere shifted. The wealthy guests no longer whispered, they openly turned their backs, as if Logan's presence contaminated the very air. Logan struggled weakly as two guards lifted him by the arms. "Please, Hannah, please, don't let them take everything. I can change, I swear." His pleas dissolved into incoherent cries as he was dragged through the doors. They slammed shut behind him with a finality that made Hannah's chest loosen for the first time in years. A soft cry from Jacob reminded her of reality. She lifted him gently, rocking him until he settled. Her body trembled not from fear, but from the overwhelming sense that a door had finally closed. Mateo stepped beside her, steady, protective. His voice was low. "It's over." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "It feels unreal." William approached her then, his stern expression softened into something almost paternal. "Miss Whitmore," he said, "you are not responsible for this man's disgrace. He dug his own grave." Charlotte came next, her face still pale with shock. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't know he was married." Hannah met her eyes. "I believe you," Charlotte swallowed. "If there's anything you ever need, my family will help you." It wasn't pity. It was remorse mixed with respect. Andrew guided them to a quieter side room. "There's something you should hear," he said. He placed a contract on the table. Legal language, signatures, seals. "My father is filing a restraining order on your behalf. Logan will be legally barred from contacting you, approaching you, or accessing Jacob." Hannah blinked. "But why would you do all this?" Andrew folded his hands. "Because men like Logan don't stop unless someone makes them stop. And because you were wronged on multiple levels, morally, socially, legally." He paused. "It's time someone stood up for you." She felt her throat tighten again. For so long, she'd fought alone. Now, suddenly, she was surrounded by people who believed her, who protected her, people Logan once pretended to be worthy of. They left the plaza through a private exit to avoid the chaos. Outside, journalists were already gathering, drawn by rumors of a scandal. In the car, Hannah held Jacob close, watching the city blur past in streaks of gold. Mateo sat beside her, shoulders broad, gaze steady on the road ahead. He didn't hover, didn't pry, he simply existed beside her like a pillar she hadn't known she needed. At the community center, Rosie greeted them with tearful relief. "I knew you'd handle it," she said proudly. "I knew he wouldn't break you." Hannah hugged her tightly, whispering a long, shaky exhale against her shoulder. That night, after Jacob fell asleep, Hannah stepped outside onto the small back porch of the center. Snow drifted softly through the dim street lamp glow. Everything felt still, quiet. Mateo followed after a moment, hands in his pockets. "You did something brave today," he said. She smiled faintly. "I didn't feel brave. That's usually how bravery feels," he replied. He stepped closer, careful not to overwhelm her. "You deserve peace now. And a chance at a real life." Hannah looked at him closely, really looked. The quiet strength in his eyes, the patience, the protectiveness that had no strings attached. "You were there when no one else was," she whispered. "You didn't have to be." "I know," he said. "But I wanted to be." The wind brushed her face, cool and gentle. "What happens next?" she asked. Mateo's voice softened. "Whatever you choose, Hannah." She closed her eyes, letting the truth settle deep inside. Her life wasn't ending, it was beginning. Weeks turned into months. With Kensington's support, Hannah found a clean apartment, stable benefits, and a legal team that ensured Logan stayed far away. He eventually spiraled, lost his job, declared bankruptcy, and became a cautionary tale whispered across Manhattan. But Hannah didn't follow his path anymore. She built her own. Mateo visited often, helping with Jacob, fixing things in her apartment, walking her to doctor appointments. Their connection grew not from drama, but from gentle, consistent care. One spring evening, after watching Jacob take his first shaky steps across her living room, Mateo looked at her with something warm and certain. "Hannah," he said quietly, "I'd like to be part of your future, if you'll let me." Her heart finally felt light. "I'd like that too," she whispered. 1 year later, under blooming cherry trees by the Hudson River, with Jacob toddling in the grass and a small circle of friends around them, Mateo knelt and asked her to marry him. She said yes. And the girl, once thrown away like trash, walked into a life built on dignity, love, and a strength she never knew she possessed, while the man who betrayed her learned life's harshest truth. When you discard the people who love you, you eventually lose yourself. Spring settled over New Jersey in a soft, careful way, slow mornings, pale sunshine, air warming inch by inch. Hannah's new apartment sat on the second floor of a modest brick building. Nothing fancy, but clean, bright, and safe. For the first time in years, she slept without flinching at every sound. She woke to Jacob babbling in his crib instead of fear twisting her stomach. She moved through her days with a sense of rebuilding, piece by piece. Still, healing wasn't simple. Some mornings, she stood at the kitchen counter, stirring oatmeal, while a strange wave of guilt rolled over her guilt for feeling okay. For laughing. For breathing without shaking. Trauma had a way of whispering, "You don't deserve peace." She pushed back, reminding herself slowly, tenderly, that she did. Mateo visited regularly. Sometimes he brought groceries, sometimes tools, sometimes just quiet company that didn't demand anything. He was patient, never pushing, never assuming. When he played with Jacob, lifting him into the air until his giggles filled the room, Hannah felt something inside her unclench. But rebuilding also meant facing the past. And that part came harder. One Tuesday afternoon, Hannah received a letter in the mail. The envelope was plain, her name written in shaky pen strokes. She almost threw it away until she saw the return address. County Jail. Her breath caught. Her fingers trembled as she slid a finger under the flap and unfolded the note. "Hannah, I know you don't want to hear from me. I don't blame you. I need you to understand I never meant for things to go so far. I was desperate. I thought marrying Charlotte would fix everything. I thought I could come back for you and Jacob once things were stable. I know how that sounds, but..." She stopped reading. Her stomach twisted. He wasn't apologizing. Not really. He was explaining, excusing, justifying. She folded the letter and placed it on the table. It felt like a test, like the universe asking, "Have you moved on, or are you still letting him burrow under your skin?" She didn't answer the letter. Didn't need to. The next day, however, brought something she didn't expect. Andrew Kensington called. "Miss Whitmore," he said, his voice steady as ever. "My father is hosting a small private meeting this Friday. He's finalizing the internal investigation. He asked if you would attend." Hannah felt her stomach tighten. "Why me?" "Because," Andrew said, "what happened to you has changed the way our family handles vetting and partnerships. My father wants you to know your courage mattered." Her throat tightened. She agreed. Friday arrived cool and clear. Hannah wore a simple blue dress. Rosie had helped her choose nothing flashy, just clean lines and quiet confidence. Mateo accompanied her, not because she needed protection, but because he wanted to witness her reclaim her story. The Kensington boardroom was nothing like the Plaza suite. No gold accents, no champagne, just polished wood, glass walls, and the quiet hum of the city below. William Kensington stood at the head of the long table. When Hannah entered, he straightened, giving her a solemn nod. "Miss Whitmore," he said, "thank you for coming. Please sit." She did. William rested his hands on the table. "Your husband, your former husband, used our family, lied to us, nearly tied his future to ours through deceit. We have cut all association, and the annulment of the engagement is complete." Hannah nodded quietly. "But more importantly," William continued, "we are establishing a fund in your name and your children's. Educational support, housing assistance, and legal protection. Not charity restitution." Hannah's breath hitched. I don't know what to say." "Say nothing," William replied, his voice gentle in a way she never expected. "Just accept that for once, the world is giving something back to you." Her eyes warmed with tears. Not sorrow, recognition. She mattered. Her pain mattered. Her survival mattered. When the meeting ended, Mateo walked her back to the lobby. Outside, sunlight spilled onto the sidewalk like a quiet promise. She exhaled long and slow, feeling lighter than she had in months. "You okay?" Mateo asked. She turned to him, a soft smile tugging at her lips. I'm finally getting there." He nodded, eyes warm. "Good. You deserve everything coming next." Hannah looked out at the city, alive, moving, hopeful. For the first time, her future didn't scare her. It waited for her. And she was ready to step into it. Spring warmed into early summer, and life settled into a rhythm Hannah never believed she'd feel again. She enrolled in evening medical assistant classes funded by the Kensington Restitution Program. Rosie watched Jacob when she studied. Mateo picked her up after class so she wouldn't have to walk home alone. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, safe, and full of small victories she held tightly to passing her first exam, cooking dinner without fear of a slammed door, laughing freely without flinching. But healing, Hannah learned, wasn't a straight line. One evening after class, she found herself lingering outside the school building, staring at the campus fountain. Students chatted, couples walked hand in hand, the world moved easily. Hannah hugged her books to her chest, feeling both part of this life and oddly distant from it. When Mateo's familiar SUV pulled up, she climbed in, offering him a tired smile. "Long day?" he asked. "Just thinking," Hannah murmured. He didn't push. Mateo had a way of giving silence room to breathe. They drove past the Hudson, the fading sun casting pink streaks across the water. Hannah finally spoke. "Do you ever feel like your past is waiting around a corner? Like the second you're happy, it'll jump out again?" Mateo's hands tightened slightly on the wheel. "Yeah," he said quietly, "but eventually you learn something important." "What's that?" "That the past can't grab you if you don't stop walking." Hannah exhaled shakily, feeling his words settle somewhere deep. When they reached her building, Jacob rushed to the door, squealing happily as she lifted him into her arms. His smile, wide, bright, unconditional, melted whatever fears remained from her earlier thoughts. The next morning, however, brought a reminder that wounds don't close cleanly. Hannah received an unexpected visitor. When she opened her door, she froze. Standing there was a woman in a navy coat, hair pulled into a tight bun, eyes sharp and apologetic at once. "I'm Emily Kensington," she said softly. "Charlotte's aunt." Hannah's breath caught. "Why are you here?" Emily offered a small, respectful nod. "To apologize. And to give you something." Hannah tensed, protective instincts rising. "I'm not signing anything." Emily smiled faintly. "Good. My family has done enough paperwork for you already. This isn't legal." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small white envelope. "This is personal." Hannah hesitated, then opened it carefully. Inside was a photograph, a screenshot from the security footage. The moment Logan shoved her duffel away, her face pale, terrified, Jacob crying. Hannah swallowed hard. "Why are you giving me this?" Emily's voice softened. "Because you survived something most people don't walk away from. And because your story has become a quiet reminder in our family about who deserves protection." She paused. "And who doesn't?" Hannah blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. "We're also funding a program in your name," Emily continued. "A shelter initiative for abandoned mothers. You won't have to be part of it, but your strength inspired it." Hannah's voice came out small. "I don't feel strong." Emily stepped closer, her tone firm. "Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it looks like holding a baby in the cold. Sometimes it looks like standing in a room full of people who look down on you and not shrinking." She studied Hannah with quiet admiration. "You did both." Hannah felt tears rise, unexpected and uncontrollable. She wiped them quickly. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to," Emily said. "Just know this, we see you now. All of us." She left with a warm nod, disappearing down the hallway. Hannah closed the door slowly, leaning back against it. Her chest rose and fell, her breath unsteady. Jacob toddled toward her, chubby arms reaching out, babbling nonsense that somehow steadied her more than words ever could. She lifted him, pressing her forehead to his. "We're okay," she whispered. "We're really okay." That evening, Hannah told Mateo about the visit. He listened quietly, then said something that made her heart tremble. "Hannah, people don't build programs in someone's name unless that person changes lives." She stared at him, tears pricking. "I didn't change anything," she breathed. Mateo shook his head gently. "You changed everything." Outside, twilight settled over the city. The world felt bigger, safer, possible. And for the first time, Hannah realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was becoming someone her past could never control again. Summer deepened, and with it came a quiet confidence Hannah barely recognized in herself. She attended classes 3 nights a week, volunteered at the shelter initiative Emily Kensington had created, and slowly rebuilt a life she controlled. Yet even as she moved forward, the world had a way of reminding her that shadows could stretch across sunshine. It happened on a warm Thursday evening. She had just finished her clinical practice hours at a small medical office downtown and was walking toward the bus stop with Jacob in his stroller. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold. She felt peaceful, humming softly to Jacob. For the first time in ages, nothing hurt. Then she heard a voice. "Hannah?" Her heart stopped. "Logan." He stepped out from behind a parked car, thinner, disheveled, eyes tired and desperate. His clothes hung loosely, his face unshaven. Prison time had changed him, but not in the way she expected. There was something frantic in his expression, something broken. Hannah's hands clenched the stroller handle. "You can't be here," she said firmly. "There's a restraining order." He lifted his hands quickly. I know. I'm not here to hurt you, I swear. Please, just hear me out." "No," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Step back, right now." "Hannah, please," his voice cracked. "I don't have anyone else. They ruined me. Everyone ruined me." Her stomach tightened. "You did that to yourself." Logan shook his head wildly. "No, you don't understand. Kensington funded all the charges, the cases, the investigations. My name is dirt. I can't get hired anywhere." His voice rose, panicked. "Do you know they even flagged my credit? They froze my accounts. I can't rent. I can't buy. I can't." "That's the consequence of what you did," she snapped, surprising even herself with how strong she sounded. He stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. "You're different," he whispered. "You talk different. You stand different." "That's what happens," she said, "when someone stops breaking me." She reached into her purse slowly, eyes locked on him, and pulled out her phone. "I'm calling the police." Logan's face contorted with panic. "Don't. Please. Hannah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. For the dumpster. For the lies. For leaving you. I wasn't thinking straight. I thought I could be somebody." Jacob began to fuss, sensing the tension. Hannah's chest tightened with fear, but also something else, resolve. "Logan," she said quietly, "being somebody never required hurting us." He took a shaky step forward. She stepped back instantly. "Don't." Logan froze, his breath ragged. I just wanted a chance. A second chance." Hannah swallowed, steadying herself. "You don't want a second chance. You want the version of me who was too scared to leave." Silence fell between them. Cars passed on the road, people walked in the distance, life moved normally around them, yet they stood frozen, trapped in the ashes of what once was. Then a familiar voice cut through the hush. "That's close enough. Mateo." He approached with calm, controlled steps, but his eyes were sharp steel. He positioned himself between Hannah and Logan without hesitation. Logan laughed bitterly. "Of course, the hero shows up." Mateo didn't flinch. "You're violating a restraining order. Leave now before this gets worse." Logan's voice trembled. "You think you stole my family? You think I'm scared of you?" Mateo didn't raise his voice. "I don't need you to be scared. I just need you gone." Hannah could see Logan unraveling pride, fighting with desperation. For a moment, she feared he might do something reckless. But then, something inside him broke. He dropped his shoulders, his breath hitching. "I lost everything," he whispered. "Everything." Hannah felt Jacob's warm little hand brush her arm. She placed her palm gently over his. "You didn't lose everything, Logan," she said softly. "You threw it away." Her words hung in the air like a final verdict. Logan blinked rapidly, then looked away. "I'm sorry," he murmured, not convincing, not clean, but raw. "I really am." Mateo stepped forward. "Time's up, go." Logan stumbled backward, eyes glassy, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the fading light like a ghost dissolving back into the shadows. Hannah exhaled shakily. Mateo touched her arm gently. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though her voice wavered. "I think that was the closure I didn't know I needed." Jacob whimpered. She leaned down, kissing his forehead. "We're safe," she whispered. "We're safe now." As they walked home together, the sky dimmed into twilight, lights reflecting off the river. And Hannah realized something powerful. The past hadn't come to reclaim her, it had come to bow before the woman she'd become. The days following Logan's unexpected appearance were strangely calm. Too calm. Hannah moved through her routines, class, work-study hours, evenings with Jacob, yet a tension hummed beneath her skin. Not fear exactly, something closer to anticipation. as if life was shifting again, preparing her for a chapter she hadn't seen coming. One warm Saturday morning, she and Jacob visited the farmer's market downtown. The air smelled of fresh peaches and roasted coffee. Vendors called out friendly greetings, and Jacob giggled as he held a small sunflower one of the vendors gifted him. For the first time in a long time, Hannah felt like a normal woman doing normal things, not someone running from the wreckage of her past. While Jacob sucked on a corner of his blanket, Hannah reached for a basket of apples. Then she heard someone call her name. "Miss Whitmore?" She turned to see a middle-aged woman with short silver hair, dressed in business casual slacks and a loose linen blouse. Behind her stood a younger man with a camera, though not the paparazzi kind. Smaller, documentary style. "I'm sorry," Hannah said carefully. "Do I know you?" The woman smiled warmly. "No, but I've been trying to meet you for weeks. My name is Dr. Elaine Porter. I'm a researcher with the Women's Resilience Foundation. Your story inspired something we've been building." Hannah's heart thumped uneasily. "My story?" Dr. Porter nodded. "Yes, we were made aware of what you survived. The footage, the case, your courage in facing a powerful family and an abusive spouse." Her voice softened. "We want to build a national program for women like you. Trauma support, legal guidance, housing aid, and we want you to be the face of it if you're willing." Hannah froze. Face of it? Her mind raced. Fear, confusion, disbelief. I'm not someone people should look up to," she whispered. "I barely made it out myself." "That's exactly why," Dr. Porter replied. "Women need to see someone real, not a polished spokesperson. Someone who survived the kind of pain they're still trapped in." The younger man with the camera gave a reassuring nod. "No pressure today. Just think about it." Before she could respond, she heard hurried footsteps approaching behind her. Mateo. He'd come straight from his shift, still wearing his security jacket. His shoulders relaxed when he saw she was safe, but his eyes sharpened when he noticed the camera. "Everything okay here?" he asked calmly, stepping to her side. Dr. Porter extended a hand. "Yes, sir. We're speaking with Miss Whitmore about an advocacy project." "We're not filming anything," the cameraman added quickly. "Just scouting potential stories." Mateo looked to Hannah, silently asking if she was overwhelmed. "I'm fine," she reassured him softly. Dr. Porter handed Hannah a simple business card. "Think about it. A story like yours can change lives." She gave Jacob a kind smile. "You're a strong little family. The world needs more of that." Then she and the cameraman walked off into the crowd. When they disappeared, Hannah let out a shaky breath. "Why me?" she whispered. Mateo placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Because you're more powerful than you know." Her eyes warmed. "It's just a lot." "Then you take your time," he said. "No one gets to rush you anymore." They continued through the market, buying vegetables and a loaf of fresh bread. Jacob fell asleep in his stroller, his tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. The sunlight caught Mateo's profile, strong, calm, the face she now associated with safety. Later that afternoon, as they walked home, they passed by a small park. Children played on swings. A breeze rustled the leaves above them. Hannah slowed, watching a couple push their toddler on the slide. "I used to think I'd never have something like that," she murmured. "Have what?" Mateo asked. "A peaceful life, a future, someone I trust." Mateo swallowed, his voice lower than usual. "And now?" She looked up at him, eyes glimmering. "Now, I'm starting to believe I deserve it." Something shifted in his face, warmth, affection, something he'd been holding back for months. "Hannah," he said softly. But before he could finish, Jacob woke with a loud cry, startling them both. They laughed, tension breaking beautifully. Mateo lifted Jacob from the stroller, bouncing him gently until the cries faded into giggles. Hannah watched them, this solid man, this joyful child, this quiet moment, and felt love blooming in her chest like sunlight cracking through darkness. Their walk home was slow, comfortable, full of unspoken promises. That night, after putting Jacob to bed, Hannah stood on her balcony overlooking the city lights. The summer wind brushed her hair. She closed her eyes and pressed a hand to her heart. She was healing, becoming, rising, and for the first time, she felt not just safe in her new life, but worthy of the love gently forming right beside her. Late summer drifted into early fall, and with it came a new rhythm Hannah found herself carefully adjusting to. Her classes intensified, Jacob grew more curious and mobile, and her volunteer work at the shelter initiative began turning into something larger, something meaningful. Yet beneath the progress, another shift was happening. Quiet, steady, personal. Her feelings for Mateo. They grew slowly, blooming like a sunrise rather than a lightning strike. She noticed it in the small things, how safe she felt around him, how Jacob instantly reached for him, how his presence made every heavy moment easier to carry. She told herself not to rush it, not to expect anything. Still, the feeling grew. One crisp evening, the community center hosted a small gathering for donors and volunteers. The Kensington family had quietly funded part of the renovation, but they didn't attend. This event was meant for the local community. Tables were covered with simple checkered cloths, paper lanterns hung from the ceiling, and kids ran around with juice boxes and sticky fingers. Hannah wore a soft cream sweater and jeans. Nothing fancy. But when she stepped into the room, conversations paused briefly. People knew her story now. Some saw her as a survivor, others as an inspiration. She still struggled with that. Mateo arrived halfway through, wearing a clean button-down shirt that somehow made him look even more solid and comforting. When Jacob saw him, he squealed happily, reaching out with both hands. Mateo chuckled, lifting the toddler effortlessly. "Well, hello, little man." Hannah smiled. "He missed you." "Good," Mateo said, eyes flicking to hers. "I missed him too." They spent the evening helping set up, serving food, and talking with families. At one point, Mateo fixed a loose table leg. Jacob toddled between them laughing, and several volunteers joked that they looked like a picture-perfect family. Hannah laughed politely, but inside, something tender fluttered. As the evening wound down, Hannah found herself stepping outside for a moment of quiet. The air smelled of fallen leaves. Children's laughter drifted from inside. She rubbed her hands together, absorbing the calm. The door opened behind her. Mateo stepped out, closing it gently. "Everything okay?" "Yes," she said softly. "Just needed some air." He nodded and stood next to her, not too close, not too far. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Mateo said, "You were incredible in there." She huffed a small laugh. "I was just handing out paper plates." "No," he said, turning to face her. "You were helping those women feel seen. You made them believe their situation can change." Hannah looked down. "I'm still learning to believe that myself." "You're getting there," he murmured. "I can see it." The sincerity in his voice made her heartbeat flutter, unexpected and disorienting. "Mateo, I don't know how to do this. Any of this. I don't even know what I'm ready for. Some days I'm fine. Some days I'm still shaking." He stepped slightly closer, his tone warm and steady. "Hannah, listen. I don't want anything from you. Not a relationship, not a promise, not a decision." He paused. "I just want you to know I'm here, however you need me." That quiet devotion, the opposite of everything Logan ever gave, hit her with a gentleness that felt like healing. She swallowed. "I'm scared," she whispered. His eyes softened. "Then let me stand with you in the fear. You don't have to hide it." Her breath trembled. Jacob toddled toward them from the doorway, dragging a stuffed elephant. "Mama," he called. Hannah bent down, lifting him into her arms. He nestled into her shoulder, warm and sleepy. She kissed his head gently before looking back at Mateo. "You're good with him," she said. Mateo smiled, brushing a hand over Jacob's curls. "He makes it easy." Inside, the lights dimmed as people began packing up. Hannah adjusted Jacob on her hip and stepped toward the building. Before entering, she looked back at Mateo. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For being patient and kind and safe." Something glimmered in his eyes, hope, maybe, but he didn't move closer. "I'll walk you both home," he said simply. The walk was gentle, quiet, filled with the soft crunch of leaves and the distant hum of traffic. When they reached her building, Hannah hesitated at the doorway, Jacob already asleep in her arms. "Mateo?" she said. "Yeah? I'm not ready for anything big yet." Her voice trembled. "But I'm not closed off anymore." A slow, warm smile touched his lips. "That's enough for me." Hannah felt her heart open just a little. "Just enough." She nodded, whispering, "Good night." "Good night, Hannah." She stepped inside, holding Jacob close, the door clicking softly behind her. And as she climbed the stairs, she understood something beautiful. Healing hadn't just rebuilt her life, it was gently making room for love. Autumn swept through the city with fiery leaves, crisp mornings, and evenings cool enough for sweaters and warm drinks. Hannah's routine grew fuller. Her medical assistant training entered its final phase. Jacob began babbling real words, and the shelter program, now officially named Hannah's Path, held its first meeting with community leaders. Her life wasn't just rebuilding anymore, it was expanding. And yet, with every new milestone, a quiet, persistent truth tugged at her heart. She was falling for Mateo. Not in a sudden, overwhelming way. It was slow, steady, a warmth growing each time he showed up, always at exactly the right moment, never asking for more than she could give. But falling in love, after surviving betrayal, felt like learning to walk again. Every step felt careful, uncertain. One early October afternoon, Hannah received unexpected news. The Kensington family invited her to speak at a charity luncheon supporting women's safety programs. It wasn't a requirement, they simply believed her voice mattered. She agreed hesitantly at first, then began practicing her speech late at night while Jacob slept. The event took place at a beautiful hall overlooking the Hudson. Round tables were draped in cream linens, sunlight poured through tall windows, and servers carried trays of sparkling water and small pastries. Hannah arrived early with Jacob on her hip and Mateo beside her for quiet support. "You ready?" he asked, adjusting the strap on Jacob's diaper bag. "No," she admitted honestly, "but I think I need to do this." "You're braver than you think," Mateo said softly. She smiled at him, nerves buzzing through her chest. Inside, she was introduced to guests, community donors, advocates, volunteers from shelters. Many had read her story. Some cried when they told her how much it meant to them. She tried to steady herself, reminding her heart that these people weren't pitying her, they respected her. When it was time to speak, Hannah stepped to the podium, smoothing the notes in her shaking hands. The room quieted. Hi, she began. "My name is Hannah Whitmore. A year ago, I was a very different person standing in a very dark place." Her voice wavered, but she kept going. "I thought my life was over. I thought I had failed my son. I thought my worth had been thrown away along with us. But I learned something. Darkness doesn't get the last word unless you hand it the microphone." Soft murmurs of encouragement filled the room. "I survived what I did because someone cared, because someone stepped in and showed me I wasn't invisible. And that's why I'm here, because every woman deserves someone who sees her." The audience applauded gently as she stepped back, cheeks flushed, chest aching with a mix of fear and pride. After the luncheon ended, Hannah stood outside on the terrace, letting the cool wind brush her face. She needed a moment to breathe, a moment to absorb what she had just done. "You were amazing." She turned. Mateo joined her, holding Jacob, who was happily chewing on the corner of a brochure. Mateo's smile was warm, admiring. "I've never seen you like that," he said, strong, confident. She swallowed. "I was terrified. You didn't look it." He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough she could feel the heat of him in the chilly air. "You're becoming someone extraordinary." Her heart fluttered. Before she could respond, Andrew Kensington stepped onto the terrace. "Miss Whitmore," he said, "my father asked me to tell you something. The board voted unanimously to expand your program statewide. You'll be the spokesperson if you want it." Hannah's eyes widened. "Statewide? You deserve it," Andrew said with a respectful nod. The weight of the opportunity settled over her, not pressure, but possibility. "I need time to think," she admitted. "Of course," Andrew said. "When you're ready, we'll be here." When he left, Hannah turned back to the view of the river, silver and calm under the autumn light. She pressed a hand to her chest. "My life keeps changing," she whispered. Mateo moved beside her, shifting Jacob to one arm and gently touching Hannah's back with the other, steady, reassuring. "Change isn't something to fear anymore," he said softly. "It's something you're leading." Hannah looked up at him then, searching his eyes. Something inside her loosened a knot she'd carried for far too long. "I want to trust again," she said quietly. "And I think I'm starting to trust you." Mateo's voice was low, full of emotion he kept carefully contained. "I'll never do anything to break that." Jacob giggled then, interrupting the moment and making both of them laugh. The tension dissolved beautifully. Mateo handed Jacob back to her gently. As she held her son close, watching the river shimmer, Hannah realized something remarkable. This wasn't just survival anymore, it was transformation. And love, slow, steady, healing, was no longer something she feared, but something she was finally ready to let in. A week after the charity luncheon, Hannah found herself walking a little taller, literally and figuratively. Her professors noticed it, the shelter volunteers noticed it, Rosie noticed it. Even strangers at the grocery store seemed to pick up on the warmth she carried now. But no one noticed it more than Mateo. He saw it in the way she no longer flinched at sudden noises, in the way she met people's eyes instead of looking down at the floor, in the way her laughter came easier. And every time he saw another piece of her healing fall into place, something in his chest ached with admiration. Yet, for all the growth, one more storm was coming, one she didn't expect. It started on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Hannah had just dropped Jacob off at the daycare connected to her medical program. She walked down the hallway with her backpack over one shoulder, reviewing notes for an upcoming exam. The building smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee-comforting scents she'd learned to associate with her new life. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, pulse quickening. For a moment, she feared it might be Logan again, but something told her to answer. Hello? A woman's voice, soft but formal. Miss Whitmore? Yes? My name is Caroline Hart. I work for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. We need to speak with you regarding an ongoing investigation. Hannah's blood turned cold. What investigation? Caroline paused. We believe you may have information about fraudulent activity linked to your former husband, Logan Pierce. Hannah leaned against the wall for support. Fraud? What? What does this have to do with me? Nothing you're accused of, Caroline assured quickly. But Logan was involved in financial and identity-related fraud. Some accounts were opened using your information. Hannah's heart stuttered. He used my name? We'll explain everything in person, Caroline said gently. But we need a statement, as soon as possible. Hannah swallowed. Okay. I can come in. Thank you, Miss Whitmore. We'll arrange transportation so you don't have to worry. The call ended, leaving her staring at the phone with numb fingers. Identity fraud. He hadn't just abandoned her. He had stolen from her. She went to class, but her mind wasn't there. She kept seeing flashes of Logan's face the day he'd begged her outside the bus stop. I lost everything. Yet, he hadn't told her he'd taken things from her. First things she didn't even know were hers. During lunch break, she called the only person who steadied her most. Mateo. He picked up on the second ring. You okay? No, she whispered, her voice trembling. I need to talk to you. I'm coming right now. He arrived in minutes, breath slightly uneven from rushing. When he saw her pale face, he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. What happened? She explained everything. The call, the fraud, the accounts, the fear that her life was unraveling again. Mateo listened carefully, jaw tightening. You're not facing this alone, he said. We'll go together. We? Yes, we. His tone left no room for doubt. That afternoon, they took a rideshare to the Manhattan DA's office, a tall glass building that made Hannah feel small again. But Mateo walked beside her, not letting her shrink into her fear. Inside, Caroline Hart greeted them, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes but a kind expression. Miss Whitmore, she said warmly. Thank you for coming. And this must be? Mateo, he said firmly. I'm here for support. Caroline nodded respectfully. Of course. She led them into a quiet interview room. Files were already spread across a table, bank documents, signatures, credit lines, even medical bills. Hannah, Caroline said gently, Logan used your social security number multiple times. He opened credit accounts, took out 2 cash advances, and even attempted to co-sign a loan using your identity. Hannah's chest tightened painfully. But, I didn't know. I never signed anything. Caroline nodded. We know. That's why we need your statement. You're a victim in this case. Victim. The word felt different now, not like a chain, more like a fact, one she finally felt strong enough to face. She answered everything honestly when she suspected strange mail, how Logan handled finances, the lies he told, the documents he hid. At some point, her voice cracked. Mateo reached across the table, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Caroline noticed, offering a small smile. You're doing incredibly well, she said softly. When it was over, Caroline stood. We'll clear your name in all accounts. And Hannah, please know this, the strength you showed today, most people never find it. A tear slipped down Hannah's cheek. Not from fear, from relief. Outside the building, cold autumn wind rustled through her hair. She stepped closer to Mateo, drawing warmth from his presence. I'm tired, she whispered. I know, he said gently, but you're standing. And you're winning. She looked up at him, really looked, and felt something new rise inside her, soft but solid. Trust. Thank you, Mateo, she murmured. You never have to thank me, he replied. I'm here because I want to be. As they walked toward the subway, the city shimmering around them, Hannah realized something profound. Her past could still shake her, but it couldn't break her anymore, not with the life she was building, and not with the man who refused to let her face any of it alone. The following weeks unfolded with a new kind of intensity, one that didn't crush Hannah but shaped her. The DA's office kept her updated. Logan faced multiple charges now, not just abandonment or reckless endangerment, but identity fraud, financial crimes, and breach of contract involving the Kensington family. His life was unraveling far beyond anything she could have imagined. But Hannah refused to let fear define her anymore. She focused on her classes, on Jacob, on healing, and slowly, beautifully on Mateo. One chilly morning in mid-November, Hannah bundled Jacob into his puffy blue jacket and stepped outside to meet Mateo for their usual walk to daycare. The air smelled of frost and chimney smoke. Leaves crunched under their feet. Mateo arrived wearing a flannel coat, cheeks flushed from the cold, a small takeout cup in his hand. For you, he said, offering the cup. Hot chocolate, extra marshmallow. You looked cold yesterday. Hannah blinked, warmed by more than the drink. Thank you. They walked side by side, Jacob kicking his legs in the stroller, pointing at random squirrels like they were the most magical creatures alive. The quiet between Hannah and Mateo wasn't awkward, it was peaceful. Halfway to the daycare, Hannah broke the silence. Mateo, when the DA said Logan used my name, I felt humiliated. Again, like I'm always one step away from losing everything. Mateo slowed. You're not losing anything. Not anymore. She stopped walking, hands tightening on the stroller handle. But what if he does something else? What if he tries to twist my story again? What if... Hannah, Mateo interrupted gently, stepping closer. He doesn't get to control your life from the outside. Not now. Not ever again. Her breath shook. I'm trying to believe that. You don't have to try alone. She looked up, meeting his eyes. Brown, steady, unshakably warm. Mateo, she whispered, I'm scared to depend on someone again. He didn't touch her, didn't rush, just nodded, then leaned slowly. I'll be right here, every step of the way. Something in her chest loosened. She exhaled. Later that afternoon, Hannah met with the shelter's board of directors. They were expanding Hannah's path into a full learning center, counseling rooms, daycare space, training, workshops. They wanted her input on everything, from room layouts to outreach strategies. You're the heart of this project, the director told her. Her throat tightened. But I'm still healing. That's why you're perfect, the director said. Healed people don't change the world, healing people do. Hannah left the meeting feeling taller. But the day wasn't done with her yet. That evening, after picking up Jacob and returning home, she found an envelope slipped under her apartment door. Her pulse spiked, fear flickering for a moment before she forced herself to breathe. She opened it slowly. Inside was a court notice. Her testimony and the footage of Logan abandoning them was now officially approved as evidence. His trial date was set. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with an emotion she couldn't name. Closure, perhaps. Justice finally sharpening into something real. Later, Mateo knocked gently on her door, checking on her after a late shift. When she let him in, he saw the notice on the table. Are you okay? He asked. She nodded. I finally am. He studied her face. You're shaking. Not from fear, she said. From what then? She hesitated, then whispered the truth. Relief. Mateo's expression softened. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand rested gently on her cheek, warm and steady. You deserve the kind of life that never makes you shake again, he murmured. Her heartbeat fluttered. I think I might actually get that. Jacob babbled from his playmat, breaking the intensity of the moment. Mateo chuckled and stepped back, respecting the space between them, but the look he gave her said everything he didn't say out loud. He wasn't going anywhere. And for the first time since the night behind the dumpster, Hannah believed her future could hold more than safety. It could hold joy, hope, love, and as she watched Mateo lift Jacob into his strong, gentle arms, she realized her new life wasn't just starting, it was finally choosing her back. Winter arrived early that year. Snow dusted the sidewalks before Thanksgiving, the air sharp enough to redden cheeks within minutes. Hannah wrapped Jacob in his thickest blanket as she carried him down the apartment steps. The cold bit her fingers, but her heart was strangely warm. Life had steadied into something she recognized as peace. Real peace. But peace didn't mean her story was finished. The week before Logan's trial, Hannah was invited to speak at a small fundraiser dinner for survivors of domestic abandonment. It wasn't glamorous, held in a modest community hall decorated with paper snowflakes, but it mattered. And Hannah felt ready. Mateo insisted on driving her. "The roads are freezing," he said. "I'm not letting you go alone." She didn't argue. Secretly, she liked the feeling of him watching out for her, not from control, but from care. When they arrived, volunteers greeted her warmly, placing a small name tag on her sweater. Hannah Whitmore, guest speaker. The title still felt surreal. Inside, the hall glowed with soft yellow lights. A buffet table displayed homemade casseroles, warm rolls, and pies donated by neighbors. Survivors sat at round tables, talking quietly, sharing stories that carried weight. Hannah was about to take her seat when a woman approached her mid-30s, tired eyes but a gentle smile. "You don't know me," she said softly, "but your story, the one from the Kensington event, it saved me." Her voice wavered. "I left last month. My daughter and I slept in my car until the shelter took us in. I came tonight to see you speak, because I needed proof that life can get better." Hannah felt tears rise. She squeezed the woman's hands. "It does get better. Not overnight, not easily. But you're making the bravest choice of your life." The woman hugged her, unexpected, fragile, real. When the crowd settled, the program began. Hannah listened as two other women shared their experiences, stories of fear, escape, and resilience. Then the organizer called her name. She walked to the podium, heartbeat quick but steady. Mateo watched from the back of the room, arms crossed, eyes warm with quiet pride. Hannah took a breath. "I don't stand here as someone who conquered everything," she began. "I stand here as someone who is still learning how to forgive myself for staying too long and how to believe I deserve peace." The room fell into soft, reverent silence. "A year ago," she continued, "I carried my baby past dumpsters and empty parking lots because I had nowhere else to go. I believed I was worthless, invisible, disposable. But I learned something important." She looked into the faces of the women listening, some holding their children, some wiping tears. "I wasn't thrown away because I was trash. I was thrown away because he couldn't see my worth. And his blindness was not my burden to carry." A murmur of agreement rose. "I survived because people stepped in. A stranger with a security badge, a community center, a family who chose accountability, and eventually someone who treated me not as broken, but as whole." Her eyes shifted briefly to Mateo. He didn't smile, his expression was too full of emotion for that, but his gaze softened like melted amber. "And if I can stand here today," Hannah said, voice trembling but strong, "then you can too. You are not your scars. You are not your past. You are not worthless. You are rising whether you see it yet or not." The applause that followed was thick with emotion. After the event, Hannah stepped outside into falling snow, her breath forming clouds in the cold. Mateo joined her, wrapping his scarf tighter around his neck. "You were incredible," he said quietly. "You always say that," she murmured, cheeks warm despite the cold. "Because it's always true." Snowflakes settled in her hair. She felt light, whole, seen. "Mateo," she whispered, "can I tell you something? Anything. I never thought I'd get a second chance at life. Or love." His breath caught, but he didn't interrupt. "And now, I think I'm ready for both." Slowly, carefully, he reached for her hand. Their fingers intertwined, warm in the winter night. Jacob let out a sleepy coo from his stroller, the sound soft and perfect. Hannah looked at the two people who had become her world. And in that frozen, magical moment, she knew the next chapter wasn't just healing, it was love finally blooming the way it was meant to. Snow fell in soft, steady curtains the morning Hannah stood before the courthouse. Jacob bundled against her chest, Mateo at her side, and a quiet determination running through her veins. It was the day of Logan's trial. The final chapter. The moment she had once dreaded but now faced with clear eyes and a steady heart. Camera crews clustered near the courthouse entrance, not for her, but for the Kensington name attached to the case. Hannah tucked Jacob closer, shielding him from the wind. Mateo stepped slightly in front of her, guiding her through the crowd with gentle firmness. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Lawyers shuffled papers, reporters whispered, and Logan sat at the defense table, looking thinner and more hollow than ever. His hair unkempt, his suit ill-fitting, he looked nothing like the man who once left her behind a dumpster in pursuit of luxury. When he saw her, his jaw tightened. Shame flashed across his face, followed by something else. Regret, maybe, or the last flicker of pride collapsing. Hannah didn't look away. The judge entered, calling the court to order. The proceedings began with brutal clarity. The prosecution laid out stacks of evidence. The security footage, the identity theft documents, the forged signatures, the financial records. Each piece felt like another weight lifting off Hannah's shoulders. "We call Hannah Whitmore to the stand," the prosecutor said. Hannah handed Jacob to Mateo and walked to the witness box. Her palms were damp, but her steps were steady. She raised her hand, took the oath, and sat. The courtroom watched her with quiet anticipation. "Miss Whitmore," the prosecutor asked gently, "can you describe in your own words what happened the night your husband abandoned you?" Hannah breathed out slowly. "Logan drove me and my son behind a strip mall. He told us to get out. It was freezing. I was pregnant. My son was only 8 months old." Murmurs rippled through the room, but Hannah continued. "I begged him not to leave. He didn't listen. He drove away. A security guard found me and called for help." "And did you know at the time," the prosecutor asked, "that Mr. Pierce had also stolen your identity?" "No," she said. "I didn't know until months later. He used my social security number without my consent. He took out loans, opened accounts, even attempted to co-sign a major loan. I didn't learn any of it until the DA contacted me." "How did this impact your life, Miss Whitmore?" Hannah felt her throat tighten, but she spoke anyway. "I spent years thinking I was worthless, that everything he did was my fault, the abandonment, the lies, the manipulation. I believed I deserved nothing." Her eyes lifted steady, clear, no longer afraid. "But I was wrong." The courtroom grew silent. "I wasn't thrown away because I was worthless. I was thrown away because he couldn't see my worth, and I refused to let his choices define the rest of my life." The judge watched her with something like respect. When the defense declined to cross-examine Logan's lawyer, clearly aware there was no defense to offer, Hannah stepped down. As she returned to her seat, Logan whispered hoarsely, "Hannah, I'm sorry." She paused, looked at him, really looked. "I hope someday you mean that," she said softly. "But your apology doesn't determine my future anymore." Logan lowered his head. The judge deliberated only 15 minutes before delivering the verdict. Guilty on all charges. A collective exhale swept the room. Logan collapsed into his chair, shoulders shaking. His world, once built on lies and greed, finally crumbled beyond repair. As the bailiff escorted him away, he glanced back at Hannah one last time. She felt no anger, no fear, no satisfaction in his suffering. Just closure. Real, final closure. Outside the courthouse, snowflakes drifted gently onto her hair. Mateo wrapped Jacob in his coat, then looked at Hannah with a tenderness that warmed her more than the winter sun ever could. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected softly. He smiled, brushing a snowflake from her cheek. "Ready to go home?" She nodded. "More than ready." But before they stepped off the courthouse steps, Mateo paused. "Hannah," he said quietly, heart in his eyes, "there's something I've been wanting to ask." Her breath hitched. "Mateo." He held her hands carefully, reverently. "You don't have to answer now, but I love you, and I love Jacob. And if you ever wanted a future with me, I'd spend the rest of my life proving that you'll never be abandoned again." Emotion surged through her, warm and overwhelming. She squeezed his hands. "I want that future too." The wind swirled snow around them like confetti. And as Mateo kissed her gently, slow, steady, full of promise, Hannah felt her new life settle into place. The girl who'd once been left in the cold now walked into a future filled with warmth, love, and a family built on trust. A future finally, beautifully deserved. So that's how the story closes, my wonderful friends. And if you're still here with me, all the way to this moment, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe you saw a bit of yourself in Hannah's strength, or maybe you realized, as many of us do, that healing isn't loud and dramatic. It's slow, it's steady, it's choosing yourself again and again. The Stoics used to say, "The obstacle is the way." Marcus Aurelius reminded us that every hardship becomes the path forward, not the end of it. Hannah's story shows that pain can shape us, but it doesn't get to define us. We define ourselves. We rise, we rebuild, we choose love that feels safe, not love that demands our silence. And if you've been carrying something heavy, let this be your reminder. You are not the things that broke you, you are the person who kept walking despite them. If this story touched you, even a little, please take a second to like the video, share it with someone who may need encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more stories of healing, courage, and second chances to people who need them. We're in this together, one story, one heart, one quiet victory at a time.